Hey there everybody, in this video we're going to be talking about the 7artisans, there we go, 25mm f1.8 for Sony APS-C E-mount. It's a really cool lens. I'm really excited to bring you some content around it. So let's start off by talking about the design and the handling of this lens. This is a very small lens. It's surprisingly small, and on the actual body itself, it is itsy bitsy teeny weeny. You know, that's a downside, and I really think that it could be a little bit longer, and that wouldn't be a bad thing, because it is hard to, you know, when you're really trying to just bring the camera up and take a shot, it can be hard to distinguish, you know, your focus ring from your aperture ring in the heat of the moment, right? It's very easy to bump the aperture ring out of where you want it to be because it is not clicked. It is a declicked aperture ring. Clicked would have been very nice. It's probably cheaper to make it declicked, but I really would have liked that. It is made out of aluminum and obviously optical glass, and so it's a pretty good body design. It doesn't have any weather sealing. It's just straight up, you know, a brushed aluminum or whatever aluminum lens mount. It's got a copper core, so it's going to be pretty resilient, but I wouldn't recommend, you know, subjecting it to lots of heat either. The focus throw is satisfying. It's not too long. It's probably less than 90 degrees, but it's really nice. And it's crazy because this lens can focus down, at least according to its, you know, the rangefinder built onto the lens, where its minimum focus says it is 0.6 feet or 0.18 meters. So you can focus really close, and when you add like a macro extension tube to it, of course, your macro ratio becomes like 1:1 or greater almost immediately. It's pretty fun. I wouldn't recommend shooting below like 2.8 for the record, but we're talking about the design and the handling of the lens, I'm sorry. It does handle very well. The focus and the aperture rings are very well damped, and so it's a very smooth but considered throw through each of them. While what am I trying to say? The lens is lowest, so the lens extends as you get closer to minimum focus. So what that means is that it's the most compact at focus at infinity. So if you want to be able to like leave it in your bag and just pull it out and click, you might want to preset your aperture to like f8 or f16, right? But apart from that, it is a very easy operation to be able to pick it up and get your focus right. If you got your peaking on, that'll of course help a bunch. I like yellow. I kind of leave mine on the mid setting for my Alpha 6300, and that does me pretty well. So the 7artisans 25 f1.8 is presently, or at least I got it on Amazon with a 5% off thing for like $66, $67. So that's really nice. So you can't expect a whole bunch from it, right? On B&H, I think it comes in at 80, but this is a lens that is cheap, and it's really surprisingly good for as cheap as it is. I would recommend using it for fun, maybe not for professional work, but if you're into, you know, all manual lenses, if you want kind of that film type of experience, this is going to be a fantastic lens for you. And with a focal range, an equivalent focal range of around 40mm, you're going to find it really useful in a lot of situations. You still can get some bokeh that's better than computational photography on a phone at 2.8 or 4. So, you know, you're making some compromises, but I think that your 60, 80 bucks is going to be well spent too. It does have a few optical flaws though. You know, at f1.8, it's pretty much unusable. Like, I cannot get anything in focus at f1.8. It's very hard to actually get something in focus. I have to use the punch in, the zoom to focus, whatever it's called, to be able to acquire focus, which can be difficult if the subject is moving at all. But, you know, that's all right. We'll make it work. The other thing that I wanted to say about it was that there is a pretty good vignette and there is some pretty good distortion. It's not terrible, but you're gonna notice it. You want to correct it in Lightroom, in whatever software you use for your photography, but it is there. It's not uncorrectable. It's not really bad, but you are going to know. I mentioned macro tubes earlier. If you're going to put macro tubes on a lens like this, it is going to be noticeable. You are going to have a very, very narrow central area that is in focus, and the rest is going to be totally out. Speaking of which, though, the aperture is really kind of weird on this camera body. You're gonna get a whole bunch of different characteristics of light transmission through the different aperture settings. It's very weird to me. Let's just leave it at that. You're getting a lot of light in the middle at 1.8. You're getting a little bit more at 2.8, and you know it's kind of vacillating, and you're keeping some vignette, but you're never really getting corner sharpness. 5.6 is pretty good across the field of view, but you might not want to be using 5.6. So it's kind of going to be individual with that. In terms of video, I find that the 7artisans 25 f1.8 is a lot of fun in slow motion, especially at 1.8 at like minimum focus, kind of using it to pan across something. I think that's a lot of fun because you have to get really close to the subject, and so it's a very macro look, and the bokeh is really nice, and you know you're not expecting to leave something in focus for too long. But for a serious video work, I really wouldn't recommend it because you do have to get your aperture right. Focus is manual, there is no autofocus, so unless you're one of those people that really likes that, and it's not gonna be the same as a cinema lens though either, because this is a focus ring that was made for photography, where it's a little bit more convenient to be able to throw through a much greater distance much more quickly than you really want to with a cinema lens. So maybe this is not a great lens for video. I think all in all, if you're looking for something just to kind of spice back up your interest in photography, or for a fun little prime to drop in a bag that has decent low light performance that you can take out on a vacation, or something that's low investment so it's not so hard to part with once you need to upgrade or want to upgrade or have the money to upgrade, I think the 7artisans 25 f1.8 is going to be a fantastic lens. I think for photography, it's wider enough than a 50 equivalent like my 35 or 30 f1.4 from Sigma for Sony APS-C, that I really enjoy it because you get a little bit extra in frame. That 40-ish mil equivalent is really nice. I really enjoy that actually, because having that little extra in frame gives a little bit better context. It makes indoor photography in particular a lot easier when you know you kind of have to be a little bit more stationary. For outdoors photography, I think that it's really fun still because you get a little bit more of that context. Every time I'm using a 50 equivalent lens, I'm like, I want a little bit more telephoto, or I want a little bit wider, and so this being a little bit wider fills that need for me really well. The construction is good. It seems tough. I don't want to put it underwater of any description. And you do have to stop down a little bit to make it actually useful. You really can't use this wide open. So it is a lot like some old film lenses. So yeah, I think I would recommend it with caveats. And I would say that if you want to reinvigorate your interest in photography, this is the perfect lens to do it with. Thank you very much for your time and for your attention in this video, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next one.